What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Sports Page here on the Peak One Sports Network. I'm Ashton Nix. Here with me, as always, Chris Robb Jr. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, how you doing? Everything all right?
Oh yeah, doing great. Been a lot bit a lot going on sports wise.
Mhm.
Peak One Sports. We got a bunch of different shows and podcasts and stuff, and
Yeah.
between NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, the draft, baseball's in full swing. It's no
Yep.
pun intended. It's it's been pretty crazy, but yeah, great times and good. I know we missed last week, and fine. I'm glad finally we're back on here.
hmm Yeah, definitely entertaining. It's been a lot to watch, a lot to take in. I've been trying to, keep up with it, flipping channels and, with the NHL playoffs, the MLB, then obviously NBA playoffs is on every single night. So, I'm happy.
Yeah, and when we're trying to keep up, we got to keep in mind that we're not insiders. We're not trying to break stories. So when things happen, we feel pressured. Like, let's go ahead and post this. Let's go ahead and do this. And it gets pretty intense sometimes, especially this time of year. But
hmm
again, thank you everybody for listening to this episode. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media platforms. You see them down there at the bottom at Sports Page Radio, at Peak One Sports. And please subscribe to the Peak One Sports YouTube page. Now,
Yep.
today we are going to talk about different sports curses. Now, this may not need to be said, but I'm going to preface it by saying this because I've talked about curses in the past
hmm
and have gotten criticized in comments about saying, where are you finding specific information? Is it valid information? We're talking about curses, people. So I'm going to preface this saying all the information I got is recorded somewhere in some form. Is it factual? I'm not sure. I know there's some facts in there that you can back up, but we're talking about curses here. We're not even sure that these are all real. We're just trying to have
hmm
fun with it, but I have to say that ahead of time.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about a couple of known ones, a couple that aren't very well known that I didn't even know that much about. So we're just gonna, I'm just gonna go through here, um, read them off, and we'll talk about what we think about them.
hmm
First off, we have the Detroit Lions, and it's really the curse of Bobby Lane. I'm sure
Oh,
everyone.
Night Train Lane?
It says Bobby Lane on here. I'm not
Right.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, this is it started in the 50s, so again, factual information. I'm not sure I have the information that I have.
hmm
And I only went to a few different sources just to get different information. So if it is Trey Lane, then I apologize for that.
Oh no, yeah, no. I think his nickname was like, I think his nickname was it Night Train or is that another Bobby Lane? Is that another lane?
That might be. There haven't been that much information. This is pretty much this is just pretty much the team letting him go is where this starts. Not a whole lot of history on Bobby Lane that I wrote down. I mean, I'm sure I could have
Yeah.
done with this, but in 1958, the Detroit Lions traded Bobby Lane to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Keep that in mind, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
That's for later on. Lane responded to the trade by supposedly, with air quotes, he supposedly said that the Lions would not win for another 50 years. Um, the truthfulness of this story has been disputed. The quote was never published at the time, but then again, that doesn't mean it wasn't said. Now, the fact
Yeah.
that a quote's not in writing or published nowadays, yeah, you could say it will probably never happen because somebody somewhere would have tweeted it, But
Right.
sure, back in the 50s, who knows? Okay, so he said 50 years. Okay.
Mhm.
Despite this, in the last 50 years after the trade, the Lions have accumulated the worst winning percentage of all the 12 teams in the National Football League at the time,
Oh
and
man.
are still only one of two franchises that have existed prior to the 1966 NFL merger that have
Hmm.
not made the Super Bowl.
Wow.
And in fact, since
Wow.
the 66 merger, when they started the Super Bowl era, we'll call it, or it is
Mhm.
called, they have one playoff win. That was against the Dallas Cowboys in 1991.
Wow.
Okay, now this is where the
Dang.
Steelers come in. We'll
Yeah.
read this last part, then we'll go over this. Just
Hmm.
kind of how eerie some of this is. Okay, the Pittsburgh Steelers won their fifth Super Bowl in 2006 at Ford Field, obviously
Oh
the
wow.
Lions' current home stadium. 2 years later, in the last year of the supposed curse, the end of the 50 years, the Steelers won their sixth Super Bowl championship. And the Lions finished 0-16, the first
Man,
team at the time to lose every game in a 16-game season.
that's scary. That's
Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah, the whole Pittsburgh Steelers tie-in, which I didn't know. I never put that together, but I know about the
Yeah.
0 and
Yeah.
16. That was the
Hmm.
supposed end of the 50 years. But they still haven't won.
Man.
Still haven't won another playoff game. They've made the playoffs a few times. Uh, it's I'm not we're not going to go over here and say do you believe in this curse or do not. Just what we'll just talk about what kind of things are pointed out here. Now, obviously, when you say, well, they still haven't won, it kind of takes away. Well, he said 50 years. It's been way more than 50 years. But I think that gut punch, the 0-16, the first time that's ever happened was the
Yeah.
last year. Also with the Steelers winning
To win
in
in Detroit.
Detroit
Yeah. Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
win at the end of that 50-year mark.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I never even knew about that curse. I had no idea. And and for them to win in Detroit, that says a lot. It's almost like it was written. That's that's scary.
Yeah, and I'm one that thinks when you don't win in a long time, you're just that bad that you can manufacture stuff. Not that this never happened, that this guy never said this. Uh, I always want to say, hey, the Texas Rangers might be cursed, but they just
Hmm.
haven't won. Uh,
Yeah.
we talked about the Cubs and the Red Sox curse, which we're going to get to, so I'm not going to get deep into those. The difference
Hmm.
is, and the Cubs just didn't win. They sucked for so long, and
Yeah.
but the way the Red Sox were losing, that's like,
Yeah.
okay, there's something to
Up
that. Not that
up
I
three
believe in any
zero.
curses,
Yeah.
but
Up 3-0 and then losing it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, Bill
That's tough.
Buckner. There's all kinds of different
Hmm.
ways they lost. The Lions. I mean, this is bad. Not winning. They haven't won a playoff game. Uh,
Losing the two best, probably the two best players like in franchise history. Early to retirement too. Like I don't know, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
wasting
that's
Barry Sanders' career, wasting Megatron's
really
career.
trying.
Pretty much. I mean, it doesn't mention it here because it doesn't tie into the whole curse. But Matthew Stafford, the first year he leaves, he wins the Super Bowl.
Right.
They pretty much wasted. I mean, you have one of the best quarterbacks. I mean, Matthew Stafford in his prime in Detroit was probably one of the five best quarterbacks in the league.
Hmm.
Megatron, the
Yeah.
best receiver. Um, Outside of that, they haven't been able to really draft a receiver to save their life. But
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's.
that's a very I'll say eerie curse.
Hmm.
It's kind of interesting, but the Rangers do have something similar to that. We're not going to get into it, but
Hmm.
supposedly I think it's next year they should win the World Series because they had a specific thing when they left Washington that they
Oh, was
would.
it a curse or something?
Well, somebody said I think it was a newspaper reporter said they wouldn't win till 3 or 4 years after baseball comes back to Washington and they win. So how long has it been since the Nationals won the World Series? It might have been
Uh,
3 years.
yeah, they just yeah. It's
Okay,
been
so
about
maybe the Rangers are supposed to win this year. I think they said three
this
years
year.
after. So this would be that year. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
as
Their last World Series is 2019. So, um,
okay.
this
So no, that's
this
it's
will
been
be
a
the
little bit
year,
after.
or
It'd be
even
four.
last
It
year.
did be 4 years, I guess. But hey,
Okay. Yeah.
still, I mean, but just to say that, I mean, just to say why baseball is going to come back to Washington and they'll win a World Series. That's not
Hmm.
that far fetched to say that, but to say 50 years and then that's the 0-16 season. That's when the Steelers win the That's one of the years the Steelers won the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
Um, let's move on here. We're gonna get to basically soccer. They call it regulation football in this
Hmm.
instance. I've never heard of this, and this is very interesting. Aaron Ramsey. Um, this is a little more modern, but online users and tabloid journalists have written of a curse of Ramsey in which celebrities die within hours or days of a Welsh footballer, Aaron Ramsey, scoring regardless of where he plays.
Wow.
Now, basically, he scores a goal somewhere, and then
Somebody
wherever this
dies?
match is, and within that vicinity, some celebrity ends up dying.
Like, do they have to be in like the same city, or like, or is it
Uh,
just like a random
it didn't
celebrity?
get in that in depth, but there is a list where let's see, does it say? It didn't say how close he is. Maybe country, because there's a lot of U.S. people here.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, there may be a lot more Americans here than anything. But anyways, okay, so if Aaron Ramsey scores a goal, regardless of where he plays, there's a phenomenon has been brought up after high profile deaths. And I'm about to give you a list. Again, I haven't vetted every single one of these. We're talking about curses, people. I'm not trying to break a story. I'm not trying to. I am a writer, but I'm not trying to make this the next article that say, "Hey, there's a curse here." I'm a reputable writer. Come on. I'm a reputable.
Right.
I don't know if we call author, but I write articles. So
Hmm.
let's tread lightly here. But the phenomenon has been brought up after high-profile deaths, such as those have been tied to Aaron Ramsey of Ted Kennedy, Osama bin Laden, Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi. Sorry,
Gaddafi,
I knew
yeah,
who it was. I just my I
yes.
didn't want to pronounce it. Muammar Gaddafi, Steve Jobs, Whitney Houston, Robin Williams, Paul Walker, David Bowie, Alan Rickman, Nancy Reagan, Chester Bennington, Tommy Smith, Greg Allman, Roger Moore, Stephen Hawking, Eric Bristow, Burt Reynolds, Mac Miller, President George H.W. Bush, Keith Flint, Luke Perry. Uh, excuse me for not knowing who this is. Gugu Liberato,
Hmm.
Hosnia Muabarka, Max von Sydow, June Brown, and Olivia Newton John, among others. Coming in short periods after every match where Ramsey scored. Okay, so I don't think it is location now.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
just
it's just
like
basically
timing.
if he scores in a game,
Be on the lookout for
there
somebody to.
there's a celebrity that now that's pretty loose,
Yeah.
but it's not very often that a soccer player, footballer, is going to score every single game. It's not
Hmm.
like when Tom Brady throws a touchdown pass, a celebrity dies. Um,
Hmm.
this is something I've never heard of. And again, I just gave you a long list. I'm
That
not,
list is super long.
yeah,
It's
I'm
like,
not going to go through every single one.
wow.
But I'm sure I mean, why would they just add names to the list that's easy that you could easily look up? I'm sure there are a few here that are kind of like stretches. Um, but those are some high profile names.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
it says hours. It says hours after. I
hours
know
or
Whitney
days.
Houston.
Oh,
Yeah,
mine
hours or
says
days.
hours or days.
Yes, yeah, I think because Whitney Houston was hours.
Yeah, and sometimes there could be a stretch, but I'm just thinking of
The
high
7 day.
profile deaths that you can think of. Maybe you knew where you were, maybe you didn't, but you remember. You're like, okay, it
Wow.
stops for a second. Every
Paul
single
Walker.
name I listed, minus the
Damn.
couple of people I didn't know who they were, those are big names. I don't think any of these are
Dude, yeah.
stretches of celebrities.
Yeah, no, yeah. Paul Walker, Ken Norton, Robin Williams. Yeah, those are like bona fide like stars. So like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, every
Man.
time he scores a goal, and it's not like he's David Beckham or anything. I mean, clearly he
Hmm.
scores quite a bit of goals, but I've never heard of him. He's just this Welsh footballer.
Yeah. He's probably
Um,
like he's probably like a trying to think of like a NBA star over here. Like he's probably, like
well,
a
it depends.
CJ
It says Welsh
McCollum.
footballer. I just assume that means he's Welsh. He doesn't necessarily play just for. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, yeah.
that would be the Premier League if you're playing in Wales, or not the Premier League, but in that, soccer's The Premier League's like the high league, and you have all these different levels. But
Yeah.
he could easily play in the MLS or other countries as well. Let's look him up because I know Olivia Newton-John wasn't that long ago. It was last year, I think, maybe
Yeah,
2 years
I'm
ago.
looking it up right now. That's crazy. 22 years. Yeah, that's insane.
That this is one we can keep up. We can keep
Yeah,
researching, unless
because
he's
he's still
just
playing. Right?
yeah, he's still
He's still
playing.
playing, right? Okay.
Unless he
Yeah,
just retired this past year, but as far as I know, he's still playing.
they
And
probably
then
want
this
him
is
to
one
retire.
when yeah, we'll bring this back up
Yeah.
if this happens, tends to happen again.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll jump to the next one. This one's kind of eerie in that sense that you're cursed for 50 years timeline. Except this one's a little longer. Birmingham City English football side Birmingham City FC played 100 years under an alleged curse from 1906 to 2006. As the legend goes, the club moved from nearby Moont Street into its current location at St. Andrews, building the stadium on a land that was being used by the Romani people.
Mm-hmm.
I know we have a lot of Peak One Sports listeners that are English or from England. So if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Romani people. After they were forced to move, the angry Romani people put a 100-year hex on the stadium. Now this, I'm comparing it to that other one because it's not like, oh, we backtracked this and found, oh, there might be a curse because we've been losing for so long. This is, assuming it's true, will, was, they put it right then and there in 1906. There's a 100-year hex on the stadium. Now I don't know if they said 100-year hex, or just said, "Hey, damn your stadium" or something like that. And you know how,
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, throughout the years, many Birmingham, I know it's not Birmingham. This is in Alabama. Birmingham city managers would try to remove the curse, but with little success. Former manager Ron Saunders tried to banish the curse in the 1980s by placing crucifixes on floodlights and painting the bottom of his players' boots red. I do not know where he gets that information from about thinking that might break a curse. Especially in the 80s, you didn't have Google available to.
Yeah.
And I don't think you go to your priest and say, "Hey, my football team is cursed. Can you come help or tell me what to do?" Another manager, Barry Fry, in charge from 1993 to 1996. Get this. For whatever reason, he thought this would work, but he urinated in all four corners of the pitch after a clairvoyant said it would break the spell. On Boxing Day 2006, Boxing Day, I believe, in England and Canada is like right after Christmas, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I saw. I think I saw like a
I
family
believe
game show.
it's a holiday where you box up all
Yeah.
your stuff or
Hmm.
get rid of your boxes, something like that. I
Yeah.
apologize if I'm offending anybody. I have a loose idea of what that is, but I know that's a kind of what that is. It's
Hmm.
not, like professional boxing. On Boxing Day
Right.
2006, the curse was finally lifted. And on that day, Birmingham City celebrated a 2-1 win over Queen's Park Rangers FC. Just over 4 years after the alleged curse ended, Birmingham City finally won the first major final in their history, beating Arsenal 2-1 to win the 2010-2011 Football League Cup. It also says they were relegated to the Football League Championship later that season and have not been promoted back to the Premier League since. If you're not familiar with European soccer, or I guess, yeah, more European, not just English soccer. Relegated is what I was talking about when you move down to different levels. Basically, the worst team in each, when there's, I think there's 5 leagues, and when they kind of butt up to each other, the first and second league, the worst team, or maybe the bottom two, get regulated down while the top two in that league takes their place. Sort of like if, I don't know, let's just rank XFL, USFL, and NFL. There's NFL, XFL, USFL in that order. The worst team in the NFL would go down to the XFL. The XFL champions would
And
go
he
up to the
goes up to
NFL.
the.
The
Right.
same with the USFL. If you
Hmm.
if you follow Wrexham, show
Yeah.
whatever it's called. There's a reality show about Wrexham. They were
Hmm.
just promoted to another league there in European football.
I wish they did that. That'd be kind of cool.
That would, um,
That'd be kind of cool.
yeah,
It would eliminate tanking. That's for sure.
yeah. Oh man, we need to do a podcast episode about that because there's a lot
Yeah,
alternatives to tanking, rules you can make to avoid that. But
yeah.
for this story, so 100 years. I don't know why they say that the curse was finally broken and lifted on that specific day, and then 4 years later they won. Maybe that's after the fact. They go back and say, "Oh, that's what did it." I don't know.
Hmm.
But that's pretty interesting. You put a curse on a team for 100 years, and it takes them about 104 years to win a championship. It it takes it's a lot for a team to go 100 years without winning a championship.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, I feel like it has to be something. I mean, I don't necessarily. I'm not sure if I believe in curses or not, but if you go 100 plus years without winning, I feel like yes, there's something.
And, and this wasn't a thing where they haven't won in 100 years. There must be a curse. It goes back. It said managers in the 80s and a manager in the 90s tried to take away the curse. So this is a big story, probably over there.
Mhm.
I've never heard of this, so I'm not
Mhm.
not not sure on all of that. But that that's pretty that's a pretty eerie one. Let's jump to a couple of baseball ones that we had prefaced earlier that everyone pretty much knows about, even if you're not a baseball fan. Let's start with the Boston Red Sox, the curse of the Great Bambino. So, if I'll just go ahead and say it, just assuming not everyone knows, there's no stupid questions, so I'll go ahead and answer them. Some allege that there was a curse placed on the Boston Red Sox who failed to win a World Series after
Mhm.
1918, apparently due to the selling of Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees. Now, Babe Ruth, uh, he was a good player back then. I mean, in 1918, no, yeah, obviously he was a great. I meant when they traded him, it wasn't like they
Yeah,
traded just a prospect.
right.
Babe Ruth at the time was a better pitcher than he was a hitter. Kind of like
Mhm.
Shohei
Okay.
Ohtani. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of comparisons to that. And they traded him. The Red Sox owner was more interested in funding a play, a
Oh
play
wow.
with actors, and that's what really did it. They gave him how much ever that was for. Uh, Now, the Red Sox were a dynasty team winning a few World Series in the 1910s. I guess is the correct grammatical term. And
Yeah.
obviously 1918 was their last one before, obviously they've won again since then. But before the sale, the Red Sox had won, oh, here you go, 4 titles in 7 years, in 1912 to 1918. After the sale, the Yankees went on to win 27 World Series championships. The curse was broken when, after 86 seasons, the Red Sox defeated the St. Louis Cardinals 4 games to none in the 2004 World Series. Now, before that series, the Red Sox had come back from 3 games to 0 deficit, a first in Major League postseason history, to defeat the Yankees at the original Yankee Stadium to win the pennant. That is the story. Now, I go back from my memory of this and I researched it a little bit. As far as I can tell, I guess it's true. There's not solid evidence on this, but I remember hearing the story before that season, before the Red Sox won the World Series. There was a game at Yankee Stadium. They weren't playing the Red Sox. I don't think it was Jeter, but one of the Yankees player hit a foul ball into the stadium. It hit a kid in the face and knocked out a couple of teeth. That kid happened to live in Babe Ruth's old house.
Wow.
The Yankees lost that game that day 22-0, the worst loss in Yankees history.
Wow.
This is going off of memory and research I've done. This isn't in this story. I just did that on the side because I remember that at the time. And then obviously they take a 3-0 lead and they lose to the Red Sox that same year.
Wow. So
Say what you will. Yeah, the
the kid lived in Babe Ruth's old house.
yes, one of the houses I'm sure there's more than
One of
one
yeah.
house, but one of the houses he lived in New York. Um,
Wow.
I don't
That's
know
crazy.
why this huge curse would end with a kid getting hit in the face. But I don't know. I'm not an expert in curses, and I don't want to offend anybody who thinks they are. That's why we're going over this with a grain of salt. I'm not saying I believe it or
Mhm.
don't believe it. I'm not calling anybody who believes this idiots. I'm obviously a religious person, so there's things I don't understand about paranormal stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't like to think, say, oh, I don't believe in that stuff because of my religion or anything like that. I just think, I don't know. It keeps it more fun that way than try to dig into it and prove it wrong or prove it right.
Yeah.
But that's pretty interesting. Not only how they did it. I mean, obviously there's the stories year after year. Bill Buckner missing the easy ground ball, uh, losing to the Yankees in 7 games the previous year. Just how things have gone. And another tidbit. Um, I don't remember what the movie was called, but it was about the Red Sox. Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore played in Fever Pitch. Was
Uh,
that it?
Jimmy.
Jimmy Fallon played. He was like a huge Red Sox fan. The whole point of the movie was his fandom was getting in the way. It was a rom
Um,
com. I
it
think
was
it was
Fever Pitch.
Fever
Yeah,
Pitch.
Fever
Yeah.
Pitch. Yeah,
So what was funny is the point of that movie was supposed to
Drew
be
Barrymore.
the Red Sox lose, and he comes back and they're in love or whatever. They had to change the ending of that movie because the Red Sox actually won the World Series.
Actually, one.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. I'm not saying it has anything to do with a curse or anything, but I thought
Yeah,
that was a funny
that's funny,
tidbit. Um,
man.
I skipped the Chicago White Sox because they said there was a curse because they gambled on baseball and through the World Series, and then they guess they didn't win again till I know they won in 2005. I don't know if they won before that, but it didn't
Yeah,
give a lot of information. I didn't know there was a curse.
I read that one. Yeah, and then I read the Cubs one
Yeah, the
as well.
Cubs one. It is interesting because I'll tell you in a minute. There was another one I didn't include in here, but I'll mention it when we get to there. So the Chicago Cubs. Both of the Chicago Cubs were involved in supposed curses right around, I mean, close to the same time period. The Cubs won the 1908 World Series, but nothing happened then. It was more in the 40s is when the curse started. So that's kind of wonky there. And then obviously the White Sox threw the World Series in 1919.
Hmm.
But from 1909 to 2015, the Cubs did not win a World Series despite participating as the National League champs 7 times between
Wow,
1910 and 1945.
like the
The
Bills.
1945 World Series appearance was most notable because it marked the start of the curse of the Billy Goat.
Mm.
That incident involved Billy Cianis. Forgive me if I mispronounce that. I'm not a huge Cubs fan, but I'm sure every Cubs fan can tell you how that's pronounced. But
Oh, for
Billy
sure.
Cianis, owner
Yeah,
of
being
the
in Chicago, they'll definitely for sure.
Hey, I'm just a Texas Rangers fans, and no reason to
Me
hate
too.
me. Uh, owner Billy Cianis is the owner of the Billy Goat Tavern, who was asked to leave the World Series game versus the Detroit Lions because his pet goat's odor bothered other fans. Now, can you
Mhm.
imagine? It was in 1945. It was a different time, but he took his pet goat to the World Series. So they get Billy Goat Tavern.
Yeah.
The fact that you can't even get in the World Series, but or in any baseball game with a pet goat. Uh, but anyways, he supposedly cursed the team because they kicked him out from 1946 to 2015. The closest the Cubs had advanced to the World Series was 5 outs away in Game 6 of the 2003 NLCS versus the Florida Marlins when Steve Bartman, a Cubs fan, attempted to catch a foul ball. The Cubs
Oh
defeated.
man, yeah. That's funny. That's
Uh,
funny.
yes, yeah. That's I didn't want to get too far ahead of myself. Let's back up there.
Yeah.
That's one of the instances where they had the Red Sox S collapse right after that happened
Mhm.
because obviously it was a big play. It was something weird, but then it just seemed like weird things started to happen. A easy ground ball. Now I don't have the stats of how many errors or how many runs scored, um, but they were 5 outs away. It was the eighth inning in Game 6 of clinching it, and then they
Yeah.
ended up just these weird things happen, and then obviously lost Game 7 the next or the next game in Game 7.
And they had also so whenever they do the seventh inning stretch song, they say, whenever they say Cubbies
Mm-hmm.
whenever they're singing it. and I think Bernie Mac was singing it. You know, he was like the honorary person, and he said champions instead of Cubbies, and everybody like freaked out.
Oh,
And then
because what year was that?
this was the same game, the same day,
Oh, the
and
same game. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
the
Yeah.
Steve Bartman thing, and then the Steve Bartman whatever blunder happened, and he had said that he had the he because he had headsets on and he was listening to the game, and I guess it was like behind. I don't know what happened or what his excuse was, but yeah, it was just like a huge thing. I actually just watched a documentary on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a
And
crazy day.
yeah, and obviously before they won the World Series in 2016, that somebody had, I think that it was probably the same documentary, but they had purchased in an auction the baseball that he had caught, and they went and blew it up
Oh man.
just to defeat the curse. They thought that would do it. I
Hmm.
don't know if it did. And obviously, they didn't do it in 2015 or 2016, so that would be a little more convincing if that would have happened. But no, this was years ago when I watched ESPN nonstop.
Yeah.
So obviously, in 2016, they defeated the Los Angeles Dodgers to win their first National League championship pennant since 1945. Now,
Man.
the Cubs won the World Series that year against the Cleveland Indians, their first championship in 108 years. Now, the
Hmm.
Cleveland Indians are also one to have a curse. I didn't get it all together because it wasn't in depth. There wasn't a lot of information on it. They had traded a guy, and and fashion has all these come about. He cursed the team, and
Hmm.
that's something when two cursed teams make it to the championship, what's supposed to happen? The
Right.
baseball gods are,
Yeah. Finally. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
finally the Cubs won the World Series, I guess, because the baseball gods were more pissed at the Cleveland
Cleveland.
Indians. Well, Guardians now, but they were the Cleveland Indians at the time.
Yeah.
So let's just recap these real quick. Out of the Detroit Lions, the Aaron Ramsey, Birmingham City, Boston Red Sox, and Chicago Cubs, which is the more intriguing one? Now, you may not say Boston Red Sox just because you're kind of used to that. And it's been your
Yeah.
whole life, you've kind of been blundered about it.
Yeah. I'm thinking just the whole Babe Ruth's son thing. I mean, not son, Babe Ruth, the
The
kid living in
kid,
Babe Ruth's
yeah,
house.
there's
And
something to that. I don't
that's
know
weird.
how
That's a little
factual
weird.
that is, but I heard it back then before
It
because
sounds like stuff like that sounds so like real. And I'm always up for that. I'm like, yeah,
I,
it has to be true.
yeah, and yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Are they going to completely make that up? Now it may be
Hmm.
like a kid got hit and he lives down the street from Babe Ruth
Down the
or
street.
something
Yeah.
like that, and people are
Hmm.
like, this sounds better. Uh,
Yeah. For
Again,
sure.
actually did research on that figure uh, to see, and I could neither completely prove it or disprove it. There were different stories with different things, different articles with different stories. One for me is this Aaron Ramsey one because that's one we can kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
the Red Sox is over, the Cubs curse is over, the Lions, they just suck. No offense, it's just what they may, maybe they can pull it together now. Um,
Hmm.
and then the Birmingham City one, they're done. But this Aaron Ramsey one is, I think I want to look into. Now, it may not, there may be nothing there, but if you look, okay, let's try to connect, and I'm not going to do this and get completely obsessed with this. If you can connect these people in any other way with another soccer player, footballer that has scored goals in these instances, like let's just take another soccer player who scores around the same amount of goals. Are there high profile? Because this list, like we said, unless some of these are just manufactured, just throwing that, oh, he scored 2 weeks before or something, and we just want to. This isn't like a stretch to say any of these are celebrities at all.
Yeah. Those are like A-list types, like big names too.
Yeah. Um,
Man.
yeah. Guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Sports Page. You can hear recording of the show every Wednesday on the Peak One Sports Network. Uh, I don't have it in front of me. I think we're on at 6 p.m. I believe that's when it is, 6 p.m. Central Time. But
Uh,
let us know. Tell us if we got some of these completely wrong, if you have better research than me. If just tell me, comment down below. Tell me your favorite baseball curse. Let's we could do a part 2 to this if there's a lot more, because there were a lot I left out.
Yeah, I feel like it's a couple out there like the Madden curse, the
The Madden
uh
curse, that one I left out.
yeah, that's
Just
a
I
yeah.
had that listed on here, but um
Hmm.
I wanted to get more in depth with some of the players,
Yeah, we
because
could
it's
probably
not
do
an
another
every
show.
year
We could do a
thing.
whole show on that.
Yeah, it's not
Definitely.
an every year thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna get a real in depth
Yeah.
into it and look at, because at first it was just about injuries, but there's a lot more to it now,
Yeah.
and it may have been broken. The Madden curse may have been broken. We'll say that,
Mhm.
but yeah, we'll do that here in a few weeks. We'll do an episode on the Madden curse, uh, guys. For Peak One Sports, this is the sports page. I'm Ashton,
All
and
right,
that's
Chris. See you guys.
see you
Yep.
guys later.
All right, man.